Well, let's take you now to one of our top stories tonight, which is Thabo Bester's criminally charged legal representative withdrawing from his matter. The convicted rapist and his co-accused will now return to the dock on the 8th of August. Well, let's unpack today's proceedings. Legal expert Ulrich Roux joins us for more on the story. So, Ulrich, firstly, let's talk about the fact that Thabo Bester's legal counsel has withdrawn from this matter. Of course, a week or two ago, when he was asked about these charges that he was facing, related also to allegations of rape, he said he didn't feel that they would affect him representing Thabo Bester. Quite an unusual case. Is this the right thing to do in a matter like this?
Hi, good evening, Kathy. Thank you for having me. Well, there could be numerous reasons as to why his legal representative withdrew as the attorney of record. The most common reason normally is if there's a lack of funding. So if he has not been placed in fees to cover his expenses in order to appear in court, then he would withdraw as the attorney of record. Also, if there's no arrangement regarding fees that has been made. So that could have been one of the reasons. And then the other could have been, as you point out, conflicting instructions and a breakdown in the relationship between the attorney and the client, where the attorney then makes a judgment call to say that it is not in the accused's best interest for me to represent him, as I've received conflicting versions from him. I don't believe that he's being transparent with me, or that there's just a basic lack of trust and they're at loggerheads, in which case it of course would not be in the accused's best interest for the attorney to act on his behalf. So we are not completely certain as to why the legal representatives did withdraw, but it could be any of those reasons.
Does it present any kind of disadvantage to be represented by an advocate and even an attorney that are facing their own criminal matter? No,
well, the old assumption of you're innocent until proven guilty obviously rings true, and it also rings true where advocates or attorneys face criminal charges. So it could, depending on the severity of the charges that they are faced with, it could obviously affect their focus and their performance in properly acting on behalf of an accused person. But it's definitely, it shouldn't be seen, as a deterring point or as a disadvantage for the accused, unless those charges affect the legal representatives. In this instance, we must also not lose sight of the fact that Thabo Bester, of course, is serving a life sentence for murder and rape after having been convicted of that and incarcerated for that, and obviously escaping prison on that conviction. So, this is a serious matter that he is now in court for, but it will definitely not affect his status as a person who's serving the remainder of his sentence on those charges that he has already been convicted of.
The state said they're expecting at least 3 more arrests in relation to this case. For Thabo Bester, starting from scratch with a legal team, what will the impact of that be on the case?
At this point in time, it should not impact his defense too much. And the reason why I say that is because the South African police services are still investigating this matter. The investigation has not been finalized as yet, and accordingly, he has not been furnished with the contents of the police docket, which contains all of the evidence which the state will be using in their prosecution of him and in attempting to prove his and the other accused guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. So at this stage, it's still preliminary. Had the matter already, had the trial already commenced and evidence had already been led, and an attorney had already appeared on his behalf and then withdrew mid-trial, it would certainly have affected his defense, but at this stage it shouldn't have affected whatsoever. There's not much that the accused can do other than strategize prior to receiving the content of the docket, and when you receive the content of the docket, then you are informed as to what the allegations against you are exactly, and what the evidence is that you will have to defend yourself against in order to try and escape a conviction. So it shouldn't affect him too much at this stage.
Ulrich, Ulrich, let's end it off with something that ordinarily would be a peripheral issue, but because of the nature of this case, and I think of how flamboyant actually Thabo Bester has been, his dress code is something that has become a talking point whenever he appears in relation to this case. There are many who say that because he's a convicted criminal, he should be appearing in orange overalls, but I understand that there's a particular legal reason why that is not the case.
Yes, well, remember that he's in the awaiting trial section of the prison at the moment at Mampuru. So even though he's been sentenced on another matter, he is now trial awaiting on this matter. And that is the reason why he would still be wearing civilian clothes or normal clothing when he appears remotely. And he's, of course, appearing remotely because of the fact that, they regard him as a flight risk, and they want to mitigate the risk in having to transport him from Pretoria to Bloemfontein for each court appearance. And accordingly, given that the appearances thus far have only been postponements, it makes more sense for him to appear remotely, so remain in custody in Pretoria at Mampuru prison, and then just appear in court via a remote link. But yes, certainly on his dress code, I don't think he's doing himself any favors in wearing flamboyant and very expensive clothing. The more revelations that come out in this matter, the more bizarre it seems. The allegations that he ran an entire empire from inside a prison cell, and he held board meetings and Zoom meetings and video calls from inside his prison cell is bizarre, to say the least, and certainly worrisome for society at large as to what the conditions in a prison cell is, and what levels of control are being exercised inside our prison. So, I think he would do well if he were to heed to some advice that he must come across as more of a humble person who's facing serious allegations, and that he needs to take that seriously. And certainly acting in a flamboyant manner at this stage is not going to do himself any favors, in my opinion.
Of course, the questions people are asking are incredibly relevant. How does somebody who's been in jail for as long as he has, how can they afford 25,000 Rand estimated to have cost that much, a sweater worth that much? And if it's through the scams, well, but these monies never recovered. I think the point you're making there, that is only calling more questions, is a very valid one. Ulrich Roux is a legal expert. Thanks for your time tonight.